जय जय श्री राधे। सब वैष्णवों को जय श्री कृष्ण। आज श्री दीपावली जी के दिन किशोरी सेवा ट्रस्ट की तरफ से सब वैष्णवों को हार्दिक शुभकामनाएं। So today is Varta 84. It's a small Varta. We will conclude volume 1 of the Dosabavan Vaishnavas with this Chaurasima Varta today. So day 106, Varta 84, the story of one Vaishnava Renunciate who lived in Vraja. Bhav Prakash. This is a devotee of Tamasi disposition. In the eternal Leela, their name is Ramani. She manifests from Rasika Prakasika and is thus a form of her divine loving sentiment. He was born into a family of Brahmin Vaishnavas in Mathura. From childhood he had a renunciate nature. His parents had him initiated with the Lord's name and Brahmasambandh by Sri Gosaiji. After this, one day he came to Braj for the holy site of Sri Govardhanaji. He became very attached to Sri Govardhanaji as soon as he saw his unmatchable beauty. He decided to stay there and, living as a renunciate, he would always go to have the holy site of Srinathji. He would also continuously study the written teachings of Sri Acharyaji and Sri Gosaiji. Part 1. This renunciate Vaishnava suddenly had the desire to have the site of Sri Raghunathji. He toured the whole of Braja's holy sites and had the holy site of Srinathji, and then came to Sri Gosaiji. He bowed down and said, "O Maharaj, may I go to Ayodhya and come back?" Sri Gosaiji gave his permission. The renunciate paid his respects to Sri Gosaiji and set off for Ayodhya. The Vaishnavas assembled there asked Sri Gosaiji, why would such an accomplished Vaishnava leave Vraj and Srinathji to go to somewhere else? Sri Gosaiji replied, well, Srinathji always fulfills the devotee's wishes. One day he had the desire to see Sri Raghunathji, and so Srinathji gave him the impetus to go and have his sight. He will go there, but he will be disappointed, and he will return here. The Vaishnava renunciate set off. He arrived in Ayodhya. He said to the temple door guard, I have come from Braj. Please tell Sri Raghunathji this. The door guard went to Sri Raghunathji and folding his hands in respect said, O Maharaj, someone has come from Braj to see you and asked me to come to tell you that he is here to have your holy sight. Sri Raghunathji said, please call him in. The door guard did just that. Bhav Prakash. There is a question that arises here. Normally, in this day and age, Sri Raghunathji does not speak directly to anyone. How come he spoke with the door guard? The answer given here is that when the Supreme Lord manifests here on earth, then at that time all gods and goddesses, etc., are pervaded by that divinity. Sri Acharyaji and Sri Gosaiji are the Supreme Lord himself, manifested, and so while they are present here, all gods and goddesses are pervaded by that divine form. Then they do communicate with their loving devotees. Know that this is very rare nowadays. Part 1 continued. When the renunciate had the holy sight of Sri Raghunathji, he immediately turned his back on him and said, shame upon me that I left Vraj and came here. After I had seen Srinathji, I still came here, and I am shameful. As he said this, his whole body turned white with leprosy. He was standing with his back to Sri Raghunathji. Sri Raghunathji came and stood in front of him and said, you have been insubordinate, that is why this has happened to you. The renunciate Vaishnava piped up, really this is nothing, I have been so reprobate that poisonous insects should really be pouring out of my every hair follicle, for I have seen Srinathji and now have used my eyes to look elsewhere. Hearing this outpour of exclusive devotion, Sri Raghunathji became very pleased and he cleansed the leprosy from the renunciate's body. Such was the tenacious nature of the renunciate Vaishnava that he pleased Sri Raghunathji. He then left and returned to Gokul. He bowed down to Sri Gosaiji. Sri Gosaiji asked him, O Vaishnava, so you have been to Ayodhya and come back? The Vaishnava stood before him with folded hands and said, oh yes, I have been and come back. He told Sri Gosaiji all the news. Sri Gosaiji smiled when he heard it. The renunciate Vaishnava then went to have the holy site of Srinathji and thereafter never left again. Never left Vraj. Bhav Prakash. The moral of this story is that Vaishnavas should have exclusive devotion to their beloveds. This state of mind and heart can be maintained by never using the senses to experience another or seek shelter elsewhere. When one has attained to the very highest, then why look at anything beneath that? Thus concludes Varta 84, the story of the renunciate Vaishnava, who was a vessel of Sri Gosaiji's grace and an accomplished Vaishnava. There is, in truth, no end to his tale. So we conclude the reading for today here. Sab Vaishnavan ko Jai Shri Krishna. Shri Acharya Ji Shri Gosai ki Jai Ho. Dop Sobavan Vaishnavan ki Varta ki Jai Ho. Jai Jai Shri Radhe.